All right, Friday morning, Seahawk week. Chase Sr. in the house, one of our favorite streams of the week. Let's go. Off and running on the Krug Show on a Friday. Welcome to 2026. It is Friday, January the 2nd. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you guys all get exactly what you want out of 2026. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and Pickle. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. All right, we're just 1 day away from the game of the year, or at least the game of the year for the moment, and that's the Niners and the Seahawks in Week 18. The winner gets the 1 seed in the NFC. Chase, how you feeling about it as we get closer to kickoff?
Can't wait for it. Kyle Shanahan said yesterday that he and the team approaching this game like a playoff game, and it really does have that type of feel and intensity, right? And there's so much at stake. Number 1 seed, home field advantage, first round bye in order to rest up for the second round, the divisional round of the playoffs. NFC West title is on the line too. These two teams met all the way back in week 1 to start the season, and it was a fantastic ball game that really went back and forth between Seattle and San Francisco throughout it. And I think both of these teams, and this is the maturation process of a season and just what naturally happens throughout the course of a single season, but they've both gotten better. I think Seattle's really grown since that week 1 win or week 1 loss. And I think the Niners have really grown since that week 1 victory, in which they scored on the first drive of the ball game, 93 yards right down the field. Didn't score again until the fourth quarter when they had a Jake Moody field goal. He's now the kicker for the Commanders. And then Brock Purdy went 5 for 5 on that game-winning drive. Found Jake Tonjes that unbelievable play, and then Nick Bosa putting the offensive tackle into the lap of Sam Darnold, causing that strip sack, turnover, ball game. And that really, Larry, was the starting point of what has been a really magical, memorable, and Cinderella season for San Francisco. They now have 12 wins on the year, opportunity with everything that's gone against them, all these injuries, to still get the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're going to be rocking the black maroon font jerseys. Levi Stadium is going to be intense. It's going to be popping. It really doesn't get any better than this.
Well, and let's go to that first game, week 1. Niners win 17-13. Tonjes had that amazing catch in the fourth quarter. That was the difference in the game. But I thought it was interesting that Purdy started that game, and he dropped back to pass in the game 35 times. And yet they only had 1 sack of Brock Purdy. And this is supposed to be a really, really good Seahawk defense. But Julian Love that day was the only guy that got a sack. Now, the Seahawks did get 8 hits on the quarterback that day. The Niners only had 1 sack and only 2 hits on Darnold. So they hit Purdy. They just didn't sack Purdy. And I do think it's interesting that, Russell Wilson was 17-4 against the Niners. He totally owned the Niners. But Purdy owns the Seahawks. He's 6-1 against the Seahawks, with the only loss coming last year when the Niners were really fatigued and lost at the end to Seattle and Geno. When they just couldn't do anything in the fourth quarter and just kind of fell apart. But
Nick Bosa got hurt in that game, and the defense was awful after that.
And also that was the 49ers with their biggest rest disadvantage, and it really showed. They tired out in that game. They couldn't rush the passer at all. That was the game where Geno took off running, and Devondre Campbell was 10 yards down the field, and Geno still got by him, and Devondre didn't get a finger on him, and Geno ran for a touchdown there at the end. I mean, the Niners had nothing defensively.
A Nick Sorensen coordinated defense compared to Robert Saleh now. A lot of growth on that side of the ball.
No question. But, I mean, when you go back to this year, week 1 from this year, and that's not Sorensen, that's Robert Saleh, the 49ers held Seattle to 13 points offensively. JSN, had his way in the game. He caught 9 balls for 124 yards. What do you think? I mean, how should the 49ers go about stopping JSN? The only team that had success stopping JSN was Minnesota, and that was a day where Max Brosmer threw 4 picks, and the game was never really in question. And I almost got a feeling that Seattle just went away from JSN more than anything because they didn't need him and they knew they were going to use him so much throughout the year. But I don't really know that anybody has stopped JSN. How should the Niners try to go about doing it?
It's going to be really hard, and I know that Diamador Lenore is up for the assignment. He said this week, and he said it very confidently, I want JSN, I want to cover him man to man, and I want to trail him throughout the game. And Diamador Lenore has always gotten up for these big games against some of the top wide receivers in the NFL. He's always really enjoyed playing the Seattle Seahawks. Him and DK Metcalf got in a lot of battles, whether it be verbally and or on the field, just in some of those one-on-ones. And Jackson Smith-Njigba this year has been one of, if not the best wide receiver in football. I really like the way that Kubiak utilizes him. He'll line up on the inside, he'll line up on the outside, but he'll also line up in the backfield flanking Darnold, and he'll run some routes, like some wheel routes almost, or take it to the flat on an option route, and they just find ways to get him the football. And so Renardo Green coming back, that's going to help out your secondary. I imagine Diamador Lenore is going to be able to cover and trail JSN throughout the game, and I think that Lenore is a cornerback who is fleet of foot, who is physical, who plays bigger than his size, and will be able to cover Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, for a player that good, he's going to get his. But can you limit some of the big plays? That's really what it comes down to. And the Seahawks offense in general, it's been an interesting unit as far as a case study goes this year because their overall numbers, Larry, are really good. They're second in points per game at 29.4 as a team, eighth in yards per game, first in points per play, fifth in yards per play, but 15th on third downs, but eighth on fourth downs, but then only 19th in red zone touchdown scoring percentage. And so they've kind of been an up and down inconsistent unit. And then of late, really over the last couple of months, they've almost been an average offense in some categories, bottom third of the league. Sam Darnold in his last 8 games, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 220 yards per game. He ranks 29th among 33 quarterbacks in Pro Football Focus overall grade. He's 23rd in adjusted EPA per play, but Seattle's been 7-1 during that stretch because their defense is so good. And then since week 10, more analytical numbers, the Seahawks offense, total EPA per play, 21st, passing EPA per play, 23rd, rushing EPA per play, 10th. So this is going to be a really good matchup, because I love the coaches on both sides of the ball for both teams. And I want to see what Seahawks offense comes to play, but also what Niners defense comes to play, because it's going to be really hard for this Niners offense to sustain what they've done over the last month, which is scoring 30, 40 plus points every single game. The defense has to give them some help. They might be able to do that against a Seahawks offense that has been kind of mediocre over the last couple of months.
You know, Grant asked the question to Robert Saleh yesterday about possibility of Demo kind of following JSN all over the field, and I thought Saleh gave a really good long answer here. Here is Saleh talking about kind of the pros and the cons of moving Demo Lenore to basically just follow. If JSN's in the slot, he's in the slot. If he's on the right side, Demo's on the right side. If he's on the left side, Demo's on the left side. It's called traveling your corner. It's easier to do when you play man. The Niners play a lot of zone. Here's Saleh on the concept.
On Sunday, Diamador Lenore said he wanted to shadow Jackson Smith-Njigba. A couple of years ago, Javarius Ward did that here. What are like the strengths and weaknesses, the positives and negatives of doing something like that from a schematic standpoint?
That's a good question. All right. We can go long on this one, but the reality is it's easy for the guy who travels, right? I got that guy. I'm going to travel wherever I want, especially since we're a zone-based defense, right? So if it was man coverage, easy for him. But then it is a little bit more difficult for the other guys. Like, how does everybody else align? Because do you go match where everyone just picks a number? What if that number's not on the field? Do you pick a different number? Do you, or is it, all right, we're all going to align off of Demo, and what if Demo's in the slot? Does that put the nickel out on number 1 where he's not used to being? So techniques change within your man principles because now you're in different locations. All right, now put yourself in zone. You're trying to match up where he is, and you're matching up. Now Demo's in the slot. Does that mean Upton's now playing corner third, which he hasn't done all year? And so there's a lot of new techniques that you're going to ask a guy to do. So it's very expensive, not for the guy traveling, but for the guys not traveling. if that makes sense. Now, can it be done? Of course it can be done. Do we have it in our inventory? Absolutely. Can we? Maybe. So we'll see.
So, it was an interesting answer. It was a complete answer that he gave there. I understand
Nick
what he's
Sorensen
saying.
would have never answered that question that way, Larry.
Yeah.
What did you ask him last year? Why'd you get the job? He's like, I don't know. Ask Kyle.
Yeah. Ask Kyle. I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You know,
why did you get the job to be the defensive coordinator for a team that just made it to the Super Bowl? I have no idea.
What a circus Sorensen was last year. I literally asked him 2 weeks before Devondre Campbell went completely AWOL because he was yelling and screaming at his locker and just stuck out like a sore thumb as a non-fit in their locker room. And I'm like, what do you like about Devondre Campbell? He's like, he's got that veteran leadership, strong veteran leader. It's like then he goes AWOL and refuses to go in, and suddenly he went from strong veteran leader to banished from the kingdom, and his card key doesn't work. It's funny how that works. But he brought up the fact that it's Demo could do it, but it would put other guys, in tough spots. Like, it's a trade-off. What if all of a sudden you held JSN to 7 catches for 65 yards, but Rashid Shaheed scored 2 touchdowns off broken plays because McDonald figured out, or Kubiak figured out, that if you move JSN to this part of the field, that it creates some indecision among the defense pre-snap, and all of a sudden it led to a couple busted plays, which resulted in touchdowns. You just defeated the purpose of slowing down JSN. So I would take from that they will not be. They're going to play sides. They're not going to follow JSN around with Demo. That was my takeaway off that.
Yeah, I will say too, I think one thing that if the Niners do want to go in that direction and they want to have Demo trailing him, what helps Demo from a technique standpoint is that to start his career, he was one of the best nickel slot corners in the NFL. And over the last 2 years, you've seen him play more so on the outside. And then this year, he's made that full transition to the outside. And so he's capable of doing it because he can do a lot of different things inside, outside. And he's played at an elite level, both in the slot and as a perimeter cornerback. I'll also add this when it comes to JSN and then the possibilities of him opening up Rashid Shaheed, who is one of the more underrated, electrifying players in the NFL. The Niners safeties have been very Jekyll and Hyde this year. There have been good moments. There have been some bad moments. There have been some really nice plays. There have been some blown assignments. The Niners safeties, if you're looking for an X factor in this game, Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, tackling in space is going to be big, but the communication on that back end to not give up those explosive plays is also going to be very, very vital in this game.
Yeah, no question about that. There's just no question about that. One of the interesting things that I saw this week was from Akash. And Akash put out a stat. Let me see if I can find it here. I think I had it here a second ago. That I thought was really interesting. And it basically just shows that Seattle has struggled this year, Chase, defending the tight end. Here it is. Seattle's defense. They're 18th in DVOA defending tight ends this season. They've given up the 5th most yards to tight ends on the year. Tonjes is playing well. Kittle's trying to come back. Is that the advantage the Niners have, is that go to Kittle, go to Tonjes against this defense? And because the numbers say that the Seattle struggles against the tight end. And the numbers also kind of say they struggled defending the running back out of the backfield.
Yeah, I think Seattle's a little susceptible there. And Mike McDonald talked yesterday about how Christian McCaffrey is literally a threat on any given play. And I think that's what he's alluding to there. Obviously running the football, but it's how he runs the ball. He has success running in between the tackles. He can get out to the edge and push the perimeter and bend that and cut it upfield. I think that McCaffrey over the last couple of weeks has looked phenomenal, but it's also what you alluded to there too. It's his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And Kyle Shanahan, with Christian McCaffrey at his disposal, has never shied away from a screen pass or even a bubble screen out there to get some blockers out in front, whether it be pulling offensive linemen or a tight end and wide receivers just setting up to block before that bubble screen. The middle of the field I think has also been a little bit of a weakness for Seattle, which is what has lended itself to them struggling a little bit against tight ends. I don't think people realize just how great George Kittle was prior to him missing the game last week. In his last 6 games prior to that, he had more than 40 catches for 499 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was on fire. But it's also what he does in the run game too, which helps out the Niners from a run game efficiency standpoint, but makes him hard to guard and the Niners offense difficult to defend because he could start off as a blocker, then run a route. And that can fake out the defense a lot. I think Seattle at times has kind of struggled to cover tight ends in that regard. And then Kittle's just one of the best at being deceptive, but also being so dynamic, being able to pick up yards after the catch, difficult to bring down. I've been saying this for years. I'd love to see more 2 tight end sets. I think now you have the luxury of being able to do that because Jake Tonches has developed into a really solid player. Not a great blocker. Very few tight ends are great blockers like George Kittle is in the all-around aspect. But when you have Kittle on the field and you have Tonches, maybe we see some 12 personnel from the Niners where Kyle Shanahan trots out some of those 2 tight end sets to try to get the tight ends going over the middle of the field.
Doesn't look like we're going to see Trent Williams. Did not practice, hasn't practiced all week. What do you think of Austin Pleasance against this front? Now, Seattle on paper, runs a 3-4 front. But if you look at them, when you watch them play, it looks like a 4-3, right? Because you've got Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams. Those are their 3 down linemen. And then DeMarcus Lawrence, and Lawrence rushes the passer. So he's a 4, it's like that. There's your 4 down lineman, even though technically it's a 3-4 with Nwosu and Lawrence as the outside backers, and they have the undersized Drake Thomas and Ernest Jones inside. What do you think as far as Pleasance? Do you think Pleasance is going to struggle? Do you think they can give Pleasance some help? He played well against Chicago. I mean, he really did. Hopefully he can play that well again.
Yeah, I was blown away by how he played against the Bears, and he played pretty much that entire game. I mean, Trent Williams got hurt on the first play from scrimmage on that Brock Purdy pick 6 to TJ Edwards, where Jalen Johnson made a really nice play on the ball when it was intended for Jawan Jennings. And I thought Pleasance came in and he looked prepared. And he was more than serviceable. I mean, Brock Purdy threw for more than 300 yards and combined for 5 touchdowns. The Niners on the ground were opening up some gaping holes for Christian McCaffrey. Sometimes the best thing for an offensive lineman is when his name is not mentioned throughout the broadcast, right? Because if he is being mentioned, sometimes that means that he's a revolving door and he's getting spun around and he's giving up a lot of sacks and pressures. But for Austin Pleasance, he played really well. Here's the thing. The Chicago defense, they're very opportunistic. They forced the most turnovers in the NFL this year, but they're also one of the worst teams in the league at generating sacks. They don't have much of a pass rush. Montez Sweat did nothing in that game, even when he was matched up against Austin Pleasance. I thought Pleasance was able to hold it down. And you alluded earlier to how in week 1, the Seahawks were able to generate pressure, but they very rarely got to Purdy as far as sacks. A big reason for that, Purdy's mobility. And Purdy's mobility has been such a great weapon for this Niners offense over the last few weeks. That's coincided with him playing the best football of his career. I think he's playing better right now than any quarterback in the NFL. But with all that being said, the Seahawks front and the Seahawks defense in general, so much better than Chicago. And so Austin Pleasance will have his work cut out for him. Seattle, led by Mike McDonald, who's one of the top defensive minds in the NFL. They're 2nd in points per game allowed, 5th in yards per game given up, 1st in points per play, 2nd in yards per play, number 1 third down defense in the NFL. The Niners are the number 1 third down offense in the NFL. And their red zone touchdown scoring percentage is also top 10. And on defense, they're also 1st in overall EPA per play, 4th in passing EPA per play, and 1st in rushing EPA per play. So you love what Austin Pleasance did against Chicago. He's going to have the game of his life again against a much better Seahawks team.
Who's going to pay for not having their left tackle? Niners are not going to have Trent Williams. They're going to have Austin Pleasance. Seahawks are not going to have Charles Cross. And not only that, Josh Jones, his backup, didn't practice a couple days this week. And there's a lot of talk that they're going to go with a guy named Amari Kite, who was a free agent, college free agent this year. He's a rookie, undrafted free agent. Supposedly they're going to go with Abraham Lucas at right tackle, and this guy, Amari Kite, who's 6'7", 300 pounds. He played at Central Florida. He wears number 79 at left tackle. How much do you think that's going to be a factor in this game?
I think it's a big factor, and this could end up being a huge break for San Francisco. They're already dead last in the NFL in sacks, in addition to pressure percentage, and that's really been the case since Nick Bosa's been out. But if the Seahawks are without their best and starting left tackle, does it allow the Niners to load up that side of the line of scrimmage to try to generate pressure on Sam Darnold? Does that allow San Francisco to be a more productive pass rushing team? When Robert Saleh calls his timely blitzes, which I think he's done a great job of that this year as far as the feel and the timing of it, does San Francisco try to target and exploit that weakness? Charles Cross is a really good player. Overall PFF grade this year of 73.2, that's 28th among all offensive tackles in football. His pass blocking grade, he's even better there at 76.9. That's 18th. And his run blocking grade is 66.7. And you pair that with the fact that when Sam Darnold gets pressured and when he's playing in big games and he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders, Darnold has shown throughout his career that in some of these big games, he can struggle and he can go to being big game Sam Darnold where he has some of these lapses and he can make mistakes. And sometimes he can get confused by what the defense does. What I loved about what the Rams did against Darnold prior to the Seahawks coming back, and that's credit to Darnold for leading his team back. Chris Shula would try to mix and match a lot of looks, and he would show Sam Darnold that they were playing man, drop back in zone. He would show Sam Darnold that they were playing zone, they drop back in man. On one of the plays, I think the Seahawks had a motion man and somebody trailed the motion man, and Sam Darnold thought, okay, this is going to be man coverage. Then the Rams drop back in zone. That's when Sam Darnold got picked. And so I hope that Robert Saleh saw that. He can implement that. And obviously, if they're without their left tackle in Charles Cross, that's a weakness that you can take advantage of to try to get pressure on Darnold because he's shown throughout his career he'll put the ball in harm's way, especially when he's under siege.
You know, to me, the part of this season that makes no sense is the way Brock Purdy is playing since he came back from the injury. If you said, give me something that surprises you about the Niners, I'm totally shocked that Brock Purdy has come back from turf toe with no ill effects from having turf toe. He doesn't, if he's in pain, he doesn't show it. He doesn't talk about it. We're not really seeing it. He looked like he was moving kind of gingerly about a month ago, but now he doesn't. I mean, that in and out move where he found Juszczyk, he's losing guys left and right. He looks like his footwork is really good. Here's Mike McDonald talking about the challenge of defending Purdy. We'll play this, and then we'll come. I want your thoughts on what you think we may see from Purdy and what you thought. How surprised are you? But first of all, here's McDonald on Purdy.
You've got a player like Brock Purdy who's not a typical runner, but is really elusive. At what point do you prioritize treating him like a running quarterback and keeping him in the pocket over stunts and rushing pass?
Well, there's definitely a balance. Not all plays are the same based off the situation. He's doing a great job. He really is. I mean, there's a lot of plays where he's throwing around time and layering throws over hook players and seeing defenses kind of before it happens and making you pay that way. And then he's doing obviously, it's obviously making a lot of plays, extended plays, and being creative and using his playmaking ability as well. So I think it depends on the situation, what you have called, how you're trying to attack him.
Nobody has defended Brock Purdy better than this guy on Christmas a couple of years ago, where he basically took advantage of the Niners using lots of these condensed formations and just said, you know what, we're going to blitz the slot corner off the condensed formation. And since he's right there off the line of scrimmage, we're going to guess that we can speed up the quarterback because we're going to get home on the quarterback with free runners. And then we're going to drop, guys into the middle of the field. He had Kyle Hamilton. He had Patrick Queen. He had Roquan Smith. He had some really good defenders just hanging out in the middle of the field, reading the quarterback's eyes. And they got a couple turnovers, a couple lucky bounces, but a couple that were just, bad plays by Purdy. What do you think? Is McDonald going to have some wrinkles in this game for Purdy? And how surprised are you that, you cover this team like I do on a daily basis? I thought it would be great to get Brock Purdy back, but I thought, he'll be back, and then he'll be in some pain, and he'll probably have like 5 or 6 games where he'll play pretty decent, and then maybe he's gonna backslide from there. And instead, he looks like the greatest version of Brock Purdy we've ever seen. So make sense of that.
It's incredible what Brock Purdy is doing right now, and I think he's playing better than any quarterback in the National Football League currently over the last month. And some people, when I said this earlier in the week after what he did against Chicago, said, well, Chase, what about Matthew Stafford? Matthew Stafford comes out on Monday Night Football, and against the Atlanta Falcons, he throws 3 picks on the road. Drake May is also playing at an extremely high level, but I think Purdy right now is playing better. Some people might say Josh Allen. Right now, Brock Purdy has been better. He's on an absolute heater. I think he's playing the best football of his career. Everybody has liked to say in the past that Purdy is carried by Kyle Shanahan, that Kyle Shanahan elevates Purdy. I think right now, Brock Purdy is elevating Kyle Shanahan's system, and he's taking this offense to another level. And I think with Shanahan having to coach in a more aggressive way, Larry, just because this defense is bad, because that's what happens when you're without Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, him being more aggressive as a play caller and as a coach has led to the offense being better, and it's brought the best out of Brock Purdy. I'm just amazed at what Purdy's doing right now. And everybody back in 2023 also like to say, well, Purdy is being carried because Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk all went over 1,000 all-purpose yards. Well, now it's Brock Purdy putting the team on his back, playing MVP-level football, and he's the one that's carrying and elevating everybody else. He's the one who's making everybody better, and he's doing it with George Kittle in and out of the lineup, Ricky Pearsall in and out of the lineup, Kendrick Bourne being a focal point in the passing game, Jake Tunchess having a breakout performance against Chicago. What a player he's developed into. It's not like Purdy is surrounded by this loaded supporting cast. He doesn't have Trent Williams on Sunday Night Football. That didn't bother him. It's the plays that he's making in structure, timing, accuracy, anticipation, processing, being a field general, a point guard, and a surgeon. But it's also the plays that he's making in an improvisational nature and out of structure as well. And this is why the Niners paid him $55 million per year, because this is what a franchise quarterback looks like. And when you make an investment like that in a player, you want that quarterback who's touching the ball on every single play to make it a direct impact on wins and losses. That's what Purdy's been able to do. And over his last 3 games, his numbers are stupid. I mean, 23 of 30 for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns against Tennessee, 25 of 34 for 295 yards and 5 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against Indy. And then he follows that up by going 24 of 33, 303 yards and 5 total touchdowns against Chicago. The Niners in those games have scored 37, 48, and 42 points. It's silly what he's doing right now, and it's a pleasure to watch. You mentioned his injury. I just want to touch on that real quick before I get to Mike McDonald as well. I thought when he came back against Arizona, I thought he looked really good, but he wasn't tested as far as having to move around all that much, but he was efficient and threw some really nice passes, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Then the following week, they played Carolina, and that's when Purdy threw those 3 interceptions in the first half. I thought in that game, he kind of struggled to put velocity behind the ball, and he airmailed passes kind of like he did against Jacksonville when the toe was clearly bothering him. But then something...
And there was a bye week after that, right?
Yes, something started... Well, it was the Browns game, then the bye week. And I thought in that Browns game, that's when we started to see Brock Purdy look like Brock Purdy. He had the running touchdown on the RPO. He was making some plays out of structure, being able to extend. And I thought in bad weather, windy, rainy, against a really good defense, that's when he started to push the ball downfield and the velocity returned. And then the 3 games in a row that I just mentioned, Tennessee, Indy, Chicago, that's when he's taken his game to the next level, because I think that's when he's been his healthiest, but also confidence goes a long ways, and he's been extremely confident. As far as what Mike McDonald's going to do, back in 2023 on Christmas when he was the DC of the Ravens. That's one of Purdy's worst games of his career. I do think he's matured and he's gotten smarter since then. But McDonald did a lot of exotic things. The corner blitzes that you mentioned, loading the box, disguising coverages, showing blitz, backing off, faking man, playing zone, vice versa. But I think Purdy is more prepared for it now because he's seen this defense a few times. And you think back to week 1, 95-yard drive to start off the game in like 14 plays. He found Kittle on the out route, right? Then Kittle was lost for the rest of the game. Jawan Jennings was banged up. The run game wasn't working. Niners went on a little bit of a lull. But then when the pressure was on and the Niners were down, that's when Purdy goes 5 for 5, really good timing throws, really good clutch plays to win the game for San Francisco. And so I think if Brock Purdy obviously continues to play like he's played over the last month, Niners win this game. Might be inclement weather in this game with some rain potentially in the forecast, so that could play a huge role. But if Purdy continues to play in this game like he's played in the past, I think San Francisco can win the NFC West and get that 1 seed because he's been unreal.
He's playing incredibly well right now. We should tell people Fortnite football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. And thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And here is the little screenshot there. Get a $100 deposit match up to $100. Use code Larry. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And let's not forget Habbas Law. 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. HabbasLaw.com on the web. If you've been injured and you want to win, there's only really one call to make, and that's Habbas Law. HabbasLaw.com. Once again, Habbas Law, they will fight to make it right. 1-800-INJURED. Interestingly enough, Seattle has not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 25 straight games. It's the longest streak in the NFL. When the Niners and the Hawks got together in week 1, McCaffrey only ran for a 3-1 a carry.
Yeah.
But the Niners have used McCaffrey, kind of bringing him through the line of scrimmage and having him do that option route. And it's taken a lot of abuse off of him, and it's kind of made defenses defend the pass a little bit more. I like the Niners to win this game because I think they're going to have more success. They just ran it really well the last 2 weeks. I think they're going to have more success running it than they did in the first matchup. And also, I think Purdy's just going to play cleaner football. I mean, he's only taken 8 sacks all year. He's got 9 interceptions and 1 lost fumble. Look at Darnold. He's got 20 giveaways this year in 16 games, 14 interceptions, 6 lost fumbles. He's been sacked 25 times. I'm going to say that Brock Purdy avoids negative plays more than Darnold, and that's the difference in this game.
Yeah, this game I think is going to be so closely contested that it could come down to a turnover. And when you win the turnover battle at the NFL level, you win about 80% of the time. The Niners did win in week 1 despite Brock Purdy throwing 2 interceptions. I don't think that can happen in this game. I think momentum can be big in it. And if he can play clean, I mean, you just got to love the Niners' chances. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, the complex looks that Mike McDonald throws out there to try to confuse quarterbacks, it's a really difficult defense to go up against. And then with that too high shell, they limit a lot of explosive plays. Purdy, known to be aggressive and a gunslinger, he's going to have to take what the defense is giving him, knowing that. It might be hard to generate explosive plays, but don't force it. Leave the turnovers to Sam Darnold, because if this Niners defense can force a couple of giveaways and then the Niners can play clean, they can run it a little bit better, and they can control the clock, I think that's a great formula for San Francisco to win this game. I do like what the Niners have done as far as running the football of late. They've just been a more efficient running team. And I think in back-to-back games against Indy and against the Bears, just from an overall running lanes opening standpoint, where McCaffrey has had some real estate to work with, not getting contacted behind the line of scrimmage, it's the most efficient and the best and most explosive, frankly, that the running game has been, and in the last 2 games. So hopefully that continues for San Francisco in this one.
Two last supers, and we'll bolt for the door. We're going to cut it short today because we got a busy day the rest of the day. Joseph Ernberg says 35-13 Seattle. Lenore exposed as the mid player that he is. Wow.
Joseph was saying the season was over a couple of weeks ago, so maybe he's just continuing that type of the negativity. And I love you, Joseph, in hopes that it's a reverse jinx. If that's what you're doing, Joseph, I see what you're doing.
There you go. Tommy Huxley. Can we be honest? Tig is not good. He sucks.
Up and down here. Up and down here.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't suck 2 weeks ago when he punched out that ball and got that big turnover in the first half. But I do hear you. His coverage has got to be better. It's got to be better. There's no question about that. Chase, what do you got cooking the rest of the day?
Yeah, so I've been in Pennsylvania all week. My grandma's 99. Got to see my dad. Wish both of them a Merry Christmas. Been with some friends as well. But I've been doing content every single day. And, of course, more content to come in the lead up to kickoff tomorrow. And then I'll be back in the Chat Sports studios for a watch party tomorrow night. We'll do an hour pregame show at the very least, maybe 90 minutes. And our audience is going to be crazy. So I can't wait for that.
100,000 plus for the watch party?
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for 200,000 on Saturday.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Check this guy out on Chat Sports. Thanks for jumping into the Krug Show. Have a great rest of your Friday. Grant and I are going to stream today at 4. Check that out later. For Chase, I'm Larry. Have a great one. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you ask.